Hello everybody, Mr. Wilson here with a special announcement. Episodes 17 and 18 of Game Master Speakeasy were recorded in a new location with a new audio setup. As such, there are a few hiccups in this audio. We are still learning what we need to do and how to do it. But until then, we ask that you please bear with us in this time of transition. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Bye-bye.
What's the password? Welcome to the Game Master Speakeasy. Brought to you by the record button.
Hello and welcome to the Game Master Speakeasy. Come in off the street, grab a seat. My name is Cody. I'm joined by...
Lance. Hi, I'm Lance.
That's Lance. If you haven't realized it already, like maybe you're just tuning in, what is this? I think this is episode 17. If you've somehow missed the first 16, now you know who we are. But just in case you somehow have missed the first 16, what do we do here, Lance?
We talk about games and we drink beer.
That's right. We drink alcohol. Because
yeah, it has been mostly beer.
Yeah, it's mostly beer, but you did the Bloody Mary mix, your homemade one time.
That's true.
But we like to talk about specifically and mostly tabletop role-playing games. You know, with occasionally we mention skirmish war games or card games or board games, but the primary purpose here is that both he and I are game masters. And we're here to talk about such things because, well, honestly, we just can't we can't shut the heck up about it.
That's true. We play them all the time, and then we talk about them on a podcast.
We stay up till 2, 3 a.m. talking about it.
Yep.
So before we jump into the main shtick for today's episode, as always, let's have some news, which is maybe new to us, maybe not new to you, but it's new to somebody. And very loosely related is Kenobi is out. You don't have Disney Plus, but I'm going to tell you right now it's good. And this is tabletop related because there is a tabletop role-playing game for Star Wars, and there has been for quite a long time, various versions of it. So Kenobi's out.
I'll be honest. I gave up on Star Wars after The Last Jedi. That was pretty much done at that point.
But that's because you still haven't seen The Mandalorian.
I don't care.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, regardless, Kenobi is out and releasing weekly, and I'm loving it. But it's got me kind of in the mood to run like a Star Wars game, like to run a Star Wars. I don't know if we would do like the original D6 Star Wars, because I've never run one or played in one. As much of a Star Wars fan I have been throughout the majority of my life, I've never done it.
Me and Dan did a very brief one. I think it was one of the older versions, maybe the D6 one. Foggy. We did the campaign didn't last particularly long.
Were you both players, or were you running it?
That was back in the days where I was still doing a DM-PC a lot of the time.
Oh,
we just didn't have enough players,
right,
or we didn't have enough whatever going on in order to do it. So you kind of have to supplement your group with that. It's a mistake that I don't care to repeat in adulthood. But
yeah, I think we've talked about DM-PCs before.
It's a terrible idea. Just don't do it.
What else? Modifius, the people that are responsible for like Star Trek Adventures and the Dune Imperium RPG, and I think the Conan one too. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, they have announced/released a campaign, which I am not surprised. It is the Dune Imperium Agents of Dune boxed set, which is basically you play and run specifically a family that has recently been given governorship of Arrakis recently. Like that's the thing. Like you have to do the Atreides move and survive.
It's a crap job. Nobody wants that job.
Well, no, that's the thing.
Well, everybody wants that job, but
but it's a dangerous job. And I am currently, which is coincidental because I'm currently rereading Dune. I'm juggling that. I'm trying to juggle rereading Dune and then reading more into it because I have not read more than the first book, and then also reread Wheel of Time. And these are two very long series. But anyway, Agents of Dune is available for, I think, at least pre-order. It was announced, I think it's recent news because the UK, like the Games Expo just ended that ran from June 3rd through the 5th, which is kind of like, it's like a across the pond mini Gen Con, I think.
Gotcha.
Essentially, it's like all tabletop related stuff to the best of my knowledge. I mean, I've never been, so I've been to Gen Con, haven't been to the UK before.
Are they doing Gen Con like live this year?
Yeah, they are.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, that's a thing. I think that it might be, what month is it? June? Oh, yeah. It's probably too late to go and also get event tickets.
Yeah.
Because usually the passes come out and then the event tickets are sold later. And when Jared and I went in 2019, we didn't get our passes until late, and then most of the cool events were already sold out. I mean, it was still a really fun experience, but we made sure that the next time we go, it'll be when we can do events.
We should plan for next year.
Yeah,
Plan
that'd be
ahead
fun.
for next year.
I would also like to go to Adepticon next year too.
Where's that at?
That is in where's that? Hotel Schönberg. Where's that in? That's on the suburbs of Chicago, I think.
Isn't that where Gen Con is in Chicago?
No, Chicago's in Indianapolis.
Or Gen Con's in Indianapolis?
Gen Con's in Indianapolis. Adepticon is on the outskirts of Chicago.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Gen Con is in Indianapolis and has been for a while, and then what the other thing I just said. But I'd like to go to both because I've been getting more and more into the like skirmish war game and painting minis.
That what Adepticon is?
That's like it's basically painting minis and then playing the games that those minis are involved in.
Gotcha.
As Adepticon, I think that's actually where they host the United States version of the Golden Demon Award, which is Games Workshop's painting competition, if I'm not mistaken. You can also take classes from really famous painters.
So I don't pay well enough to win any of that.
Well, that's why you should go to a class.
But I don't care if I paint well enough to do that.
Anyway, the next piece of news. The One Ring, which we have done a single session of so far, they have recently released a separate mode for $5. You can get it off DriveThru RPG called Strider Mode. And this is essentially the One Ring with additional rules for solo play. So if you can't wrangle your friends into playing the One Ring, there is now a $5 supplement where you can... It's called Strider Mode for a reason. I assume it's to kind of capture the flavor. You know, you think of Aragorn doing solo stuff before he joins the Fellowship, before the Fellowship happens. What else? There's only 5 days left in the Kickstarter at the time of recording, so by the time this episode comes out, it'll have already been closed. But there is a Batman Gotham City Chronicles miniatures board game and role-playing game. Like, they're two separate things, I think, but both under the same IP. And it's basic. I didn't really look into the details of the board game, and I skimmed the role-playing game because, well, that's what we do here. And it looks to be kind of like how the Cowboy Bebop one is, which is
cinematic.
Well, it's very cinematic in storytelling, but there are rules for playing existing characters in the universe. Where, you know, you can go in and with your friends, and that means someone in the group gets to be Batman, obviously.
I'm the goddamn Batman.
Yeah, and, oh, by the way, have you seen the newest movie of it?
No.
Neither have I. No, all right, we're behind.
We're not going to talk about it.
But anyway, do you know what all of these things have in common? All these different news topics?
They're all licensed?
That's exactly correct. That'll come right back into the main topic today. But that's all I have for news that I wanted to talk about. So why don't you tell me what we did recently in the tabletop gaming experience?
I believe that Call of Cthulhu was one of our more recent escapades.
Yeah, we ran that last Tuesday.
Yeah, we did.
From your perspective as one of the players, what happened and how did it go?
Well, let's see. We split the party, as we oft do. Couple of the characters, the scientist and the priest, decided to go underneath Miskatonic University into the tunnels.
Yes, into the maintenance tunnels, towards the sound of the boiler room.
Where they were accosted by what I believe to be one of the suspects that we've been concerned about, although that was not made 100% clear. I don't think it was actually the monster, unless the monster and the suspect are one and the same. So they dealt a little bit with that. We have all, I think, learned the value of push rolls, even in failure. Honestly,
even in failure.
If you're playing the Call of Cthulhu system, push your rolls a lot.
Yeah, don't be afraid
Don't be afraid to push because pushing your roll and failing, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get killed. It just means things are going to get weird. And when you're playing Call of Cthulhu, you want things to get weird.
Yeah, it makes things. I think the most interesting moments are when people fail their push rolls.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because if you succeed, it's just kind of like you achieved what you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
If you fail, I get to make whatever I feel like happen, which
Yep.
is a lot of fun. Do you, in this game, compared to other tabletop role-playing games, have you or have I succeeded in creating a tension?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, and definitely you've done that in spite of the fact that none of us can stop making jokes about things. We've
Oh yeah.
tried as we might.
Usually
our-
that's what breaks tension. Right?
Yeah,
is
but-
people breaking into my narrations, saying things about members and units and other inappropriate talk.
Yeah, no, I mean we have. I feel like we've tried, but we're just not capable of 100% of the.
No,
like me and Dan especially just can't.
You just can't quiet it.
No, we can't quit making.
It
Bad,
comes as naturally as
It
breathing.
really does. But in spite of all of that, yeah, you have definitely built up a lot of tension. My character, who is a career thief, did a little breaking and entering into the shack of the guy this suspect that I've been talking about, and what we know is there's a lot of interconnected tunnels underneath this town.
Oh yeah, yeah. The sewer system run. I don't know if this is canon. Just like every other existing system I take, I don't know. I didn't bother to look up if Arkham actually has like a really big
Sewer system?
but it suited my needs,
No,
so now it does.
It's working, but yeah, that's basically the only thing of value I found in his house.
That's
was
it.
that
That's
he had-
another reiterated piece of advice for any game masters out there. If you're running your own home game, do whatever the heck you want with existing lore.
Make the setting work for you, not the other way around.
Exactly. It should be something that enables you to create more easily a functioning and fun experience.
For sure.
So, who's your favorite other player character? Out of all the other 4 in the group, since you're playing the Irish burglar, who is your favorite PC? Not necessarily who your character. What's Lance's favorite other PC? Not who your character likes the most.
because I feel like Killian doesn't particularly like the Good Doctor, but I kind of do.
Dan's character.
Yeah, Dan's
Dr.
character.
Spencer
Yeah,
Spengler
I do like him.
and his albino chimpanzee
yeah,
Bippo.
he's weird. He's just mad because I won't throw myself in front of monsters to help him out in his endeavors.
Which I'm glad someone is.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys want to get any work done, someone's got to be willing to throw themselves into the danger.
You know, I feel like I have more than pulled my weight when it comes to digging for clues. I just do it from the perspective of a guy that doesn't want to get eaten by whatever the hell is stalking around Arkham right now.
Which kind of makes sense if your character has a sense of self-preservation. I mean, he's got the other. I mean, I don't know how much we've talked about that, but he does have existing family that he cares for and that is younger than him.
Well, and I mean, he fled to America because he had gotten in some trouble
Oh yeah.
back home
Back
with
home,
some
yeah.
criminal elements. They cut his face all up, and
That's why he's got the.
the Glasgow Smile, yeah.
Glasgow
So
Smile.
he fled there because he wanted to keep himself and his brother safe. I don't see why, from his perspective, doing something like that he perceives as deliberately dangerous
Yeah.
is, terribly wise.
So, what else? From my perspective, I, of course, am constantly always doubting, especially because the jokes are made. From my side of the Keeper's screen, I can't quite tell if everyone is feeling the tension and drama, but everyone seems to be having almost more fun in Call of Cthulhu than...
was going to say, if you want any indicator of what you're doing right, I think the vast majority of the group
They look
forward to
more
Call of Cthulhu more than they do to
The current
our
running
very
fantasy.
long-running campaign in Pathfinder.
Oh,
So,
yeah. In D&D/Pathfinder.
Started in D&D.
Yeah. So that is all we've got for a recent experience, I'd say. What are we... Oh, well, first of all, by the way, if you haven't already gotten one, you can walk right up to the bar where today's bartender, Vigo, can serve you an age-appropriate beverage. What are we drinking today?
Okay.
It's from New Glarus, Wisconsin, bottled in New Glarus.
Yep. So me and the wife, last weekend, we took a trip to the Dells. And while we were at a gas station picking up some stuff to take back to the Airbnb we were staying at, I noticed that they had a New Glarus coffee stout.
Yeah.
Now, I am familiar with New Glarus beers. A mutual friend of ours is from Wisconsin and used to bring me back beer all the time when he would go home to visit his family.
Yeah, Spotted Cow.
Yep, Spotted Cow, drank a lot of that, and me and Sarah have been to the brewery in New Glarus previously. So I'm familiar with the beer, and the kicker about New Glarus is, as far as I am aware, they only sell it in Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can't just buy it in any old state, either in the Midwest or in the rest of the country, so you kind of have to go to Wisconsin to get it.
And I don't know if that's just their decision or if there's a Wisconsin law. Or
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it has something to do with
Maybe they're just making enough profit in state.
Yeah,
they don't need
maybe.
to. I don't know.
But whatever the case, you can't buy New Glarus outside of Wisconsin, and so we can't get it here at home. So I thought the better of picking up a little 6-pack of this to bring home, and we drank some of it while we were there, and I figured we'd save the rest of it for our recording.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. So we're drinking this New Glarus coffee stout, and I like it. It's all right.
It's mild for a coffee stout.
That's what I was going to say. The coffee stouty flavor is very tempered. It is dialed back. It's a lot more subtle.
A lot of times when you drink a lot of stouts and a lot of dark beers, they're not the kind of beers you can drink large quantities of.
Yeah, this one
feels like you could probably sit down to a 6-pack of this one and be okay.
Crack this open around the campfire and drink. Oh, I want a coffee stout, but I don't want to be, too heavy.
I don't want to feel like I have like chocolate in my stomach.
A chocolate boulder that you're carrying around, sloshing everywhere. All right, well, this is delicious. Thank you for saving us some.
Absolutely.
Now, on to today's main topic. As I hinted at before, licensed RPGs is a broad topic. My first question to you is just, and I understand that anytime I ask a question, you can always say it depends, but generalized, how do you feel about licensed RPGs?
I don't like them.
Okay, please expound on that. Why don't you like them?
Now, some are better than others, obviously, like you said. There is a big it depends factor, but as a general rule...
everything always depends, right? There's always exceptions, usually.
The thing that I don't like, for the most part, about licensed RPGs is games that get licensed tend to be games from very popular IPs, and those very popular IPs have very well-established canon, which I, as a GM, feel like unless you're willing to just rewrite the canon to make sure that your players can have some impact on the world, I feel like it's hard for the players to feel like they're getting the same kind of epic experience as the characters in the other media of it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you're playing a Star Wars RPG, for example, and it's, like, when it comes to, like, the Star Wars time, like, the different eras of Star Wars...
Yeah.
I like the Old Republic the best because it's the least fleshed out.
Oh, yeah.
It's the one that has the most room for your players to have a big impact on the world.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, if you're playing one that, takes place between episodes 4 and 5 or something,
right, there's
only so much your players can do to impact that universe, because you know that the events of episodes 5 and 6 have to happen.
Right.
Unless, as a GM, like I said, you're willing to rewrite the canon. This was the same...
As we discussed earlier, you're totally allowed to do.
You absolutely are, but if you're like me, you have a hard time completely rewriting the universe.
You just kind of feel like maybe there's this weird itch at the back of your brain as you're doing it. Like, this isn't right.
Well, that was the same apprehension I had when we started playing Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
it was kind of that same thing, because it takes place between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
Right.
My whole thought was, how much can we really do that's going to have that kind of cool, badass feeling impact? Because we already know what's going to happen.
So do you think that the One Ring RPG would be a lot better if it was set in, like, the Second Age or something, where there's still stuff known, but it's not as popular?
Yeah, I do. And it's we talked about this a little bit when we had discussed the Avatar RPG.
Yeah.
Like, you said you wanted to do it back during the 100-Year War.
Yeah, where there's not a lot of stuff
instead of after Aang's...
His cycle, his lifespan.
And yet, instead of like when he was frozen and got thawed out, you know what I'm talking
about? Right, yeah.
Like, so before all of that, and that I agree with. I think that's a better place to put the plot than within kind of the bigger universe. But it also depends. Me and Dan had discussed a little bit of the Cowboy Bebop game.
Oh yeah.
And the nice thing about Cowboy Bebop as an IP is it's a pretty low level series of events.
Oh yeah, because there's a lot of episodes from the original anime that are just that it's episodic.
Yeah,
kind
it's
of.
just
It goes
bounty
back
hunting.
and forth.
Mhm.
There's like a sine wave where it dips into advancing an overarching plot and then rises up, or maybe maybe the opposite. It dips down into episodic just shenanigans, like the fridge episode.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing
And if you have never seen it, go watch Cowboy Bebop.
There's
and when you
26 episodes. You'll thank me later.
there's also a good movie.
I haven't seen the movie.
And then but there's also when you get to the freezer episode,
Yeah.
you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Has no bearing on the overarching
Nope.
plot, but it's very memorable.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
But me and Dan had discussed it because the only real major kind of like whole world affecting event that really took place during that entire series was the internal war within the syndicate.
Oh yeah.
Like that's the only thing that really happened there. So you could play that game as a licensed IP and just have your characters be a table of randomly assorted cowboys, bounty hunters, hunting randomly assorted bounties, getting involved into some of the stuff in there, and you wouldn't really have any way to like break the storyline.
Oh yeah, because I think I'm going just off of pure memory here, but you know how in Cowboy Bebop they have that like TV show geared exactly towards bounty hunters. Like I think one of the first lines from those characters on that in-universe TV show is like, "Hey, all 30,000 cowboys in the system,"
Something like that. Yeah,
and the story followed 5 of them, right?
Exactly.
So that kind of leaves it a little more open, and the Syndicate is also kind of like directly tied to, assuming that all the members of the Bebop are player characters, the Syndicate's tied to the backstory of one of them.
Yeah.
So it's directly tied to an existing character's plot and less world plot. Whereas in the One Ring, you know that Frodo and the Fellowship are gonna, well, not the Fellowship falls apart technically, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. They set out and then Frodo gets the ring, and that's how evil is actually defeated. And that in the One Ring, you are just kind of making your own stories, and nothing you do will defeat Sauron, because that doesn't happen for another 60 years. Unless you wanted to, I guess.
I think you could make a low-level campaign and something like that that'd be fun, but I think the problem is, for the most part, your players' expectations going into a game like that is that you're going to get to live through an epic tale similar to what occurred in The Hobbit or in The Lord of the Rings, and that's really hard to do from a GM perspective if you're not willing to break the canon specifically,
right,
to write something like that for your players, which seems to me like you're almost in a way setting them up for disappointment, which is a shame, because from the one session we played, I think the system is solid. Like I had no problem with the game mechanically. I have a hard time getting into licensed IP for a lot of those reasons.
So for you, what I'm gathering is it's mostly the ones that have big important plots.
Yeah,
the problem.
That's
so. How do you feel about like comic book RPGs, like the Batman one? You think about how comics release, and different writers take the reins.
They reset the universe every couple of years in comic books.
So would you be more comfortable with that kind of situation? Because then we're essentially telling our own version of how the Joker, offs so-and-so. No spoilers for Death in the Family or other certain events.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a happy middle ground. But in a scenario like that, I would probably rather just go out and buy one of the many superhero RPGs.
And make your own
and make my own characters, or as a GM, make my own plot lines.
Yeah.
Like, instead of kind of doing my own half-assed retelling of some Batman stuff.
Right.
I can just do my own.
Yeah. Have your own...
So I guess what I'm saying is that particular type of book, for me, doesn't serve much of a purpose.
Okay.
It's not that it's a bad idea, it's that
in
my mind, the better idea is to go get a superhero RPG and just do it yourself.
Right. To come up with your own original thing and not use characters that are planned out for you. But I think that's also part of our group, right? Like we often, I mean, even when we've got the few times where we run or play pre-written adventures, except for my unsuccessful iteration of Storm King's Thunder. When we did what is it, Devil's Tower? Is that the one we did for Deadlands?
Yep.
You know, I'm
read
sure
that a lot of times.
I haven't read the book, but I'm sure that you did what you could to incorporate our character's existing
of course.
story into it.
Well, and I think too that that's one of the things that I if you look at our group specifically, now that you mentioned it, we all like to make characters. Like, most of us aren't big fans of pre-gens. So in a scenario where you're doing that, where you're like, okay, well, you get to play Batman, and I guess I'll play the Red Hood, and somebody will play Robin, or da-da-da-da-da. I don't think most of us are that into that idea.
That's fair. That is true. It might be a per-group thing. Like, if you're playing with a group that has a lot of people that are cool with you showing up with pre-gens for them to play, then it's a perfectly acceptable route to take. And I think it would be a good way to demo your game. You know, if you have... I assume that when the Marvel RPG that had its we talked about it. They had a test beta book you could get for like $10-15. I'm sure that when that comes out, it has rules for also generating your own characters. And so if you're like at a con and you're demoing your RPG, or you're demoing an RPG from a company, then running existing characters is easier to get into.
Well, you don't want to waste the several hours that usually goes into character creation if you're trying to demo something.
Here's
play
a question,
Wolverine.
It does kind of create an interesting situation where if you're playing an existing character, you as the player character generally already have an idea on how to roleplay them. Now, can I ask you a question? This is a Matt Colville point, actually.
Okay.
Have you played The Last of Us?
Yes.
All right, so you've played it all the way through. Spoiler alert for The Last of Us, the first one.
I haven't played the second one. I can't spoil it anyway.
That's fine. I'm worried about the first one. At the end, when you are going to save Ellie, what did you do to the doctors in the room?
I'm pretty sure I killed all of them.
You're pretty sure you killed all of them, right?
Sure I killed all of them.
And why did you do that?
Because they were gonna cut her head open. And
is it because that's what Joel would do?
Yes.
That's what
Matt
Colville says. He did it because that's what Joel would do.
I was definitely rocking the Joel as a dad mentality that he had taken toward Ellie through that game.
The implied ex-raider turned dad.
Yeah. Basically. Well, the dad turned raider turned adopted father. You know, after everything, because the whole shtick with him in the thing was, and this is the whole reason for the intro giving that flesh to him is, he had a daughter,
right,
and she died during this event, and it kind of screwed him up. And I think that he always saw Ellie as his second chance.
Oh yeah, that's
what I mean.
For sure.
This was his second chance to have a daughter and to be a dad and to do that. And then you find out that these doctors are willing to chop her up in order to get the cure for this thing. And if I remember right, it wasn't even 100% guarantee. This was.
This is just they were taking their only shot.
This might work.
Yeah, this might work.
So Joel did what I think any good father would do in that scenario and murdered a whole bunch of people. What I would have done in that same scenario.
Yeah, I mean, you protect your kid, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you don't respect their decision.
Yep. Well, listen, sometimes kids do dumb things and you got to guide them. They aren't capable of making their own decisions.
But my point here is that you made a choice based on the existing character's personality, essentially.
Uh-huh.
So how do you feel maybe if you were running existing characters for one-shots? I know we don't play a lot of one-shots, but would you say that I said, hey, so-and-so can't make it this next Tuesday. We're going to play this new Batman RPG, and we're going to just do it as a one-shot. Then would you be comfortable playing an existing...
Yeah, I mean, if the intention of it is to make it into a one-shot, for sure.
Okay.
I just wouldn't do that with any...
long-running campaigns.
With anything that I even thought was going to become a long-running campaign. Because sometimes you do a one-shot, and you're like, man, this was a lot of fun. Maybe we should keep playing this.
Oh, yeah. That's that.
In that case, I would start over from zero and make characters and run them through it. But.
Yeah. And then you could just have the events of the one-shot be canon.
Yeah.
So which is a good idea, in my opinion, anyway.
So what is your opinion on licensed games? Because I know I take a more narrow view of it probably than most people.
Yeah, I'm... if I like a setting, I get excited to run something in it, regardless of what it is. I approached the One Ring with excitement to test it out, not just because of its rules, but because I like the Lord of the Rings. I think that I could have fun with the Avatar game, regardless of what time period. I picked the 100 Years' War because I knew that would give you guys the most freedom to create interesting, unique characters that could have great impacts. Like, imagine defending the walls of Ba Sing Se and when Iroh is sieging it or something
I don't know
like
what you're talking about. There is no war in Ba Sing Se.
well, there is no war in Ba Sing Se. My name is Julie. If you have not seen Avatar, give yourself a treat. It's fun for all ages. And specifically Avatar The Last Airbender is what I'm talking about. Not the terrible live-action movie.
Oh, God.
And it's really just, that's all it comes down to. If I like a setting, I would be excited to run even a continuous adventure in it. I could do it using existing characters. However, I think I would be prone not to. Just because if someone made a crazy, weird decision for an existing character, I would feel weird as the GM. Like if we were
letting them do it.
Yeah, letting them do it. Like if we were playing Batman and Dan was Batman and he just started
Murdering
making
people?
dudes' teeth go through the back of their skull, like, and they were like actually killing, then I would feel really weird about it. You know, it'd be one of those childhood situations where I'd be tempted to be like, nah, you can't do that. I have a shield, you know.
Well,
And I go through your shield because I have a photon disintegrator, you know.
Well,
Where you're just making stuff up.
And for that to work, you have to have a group that's going to buy into the characters they're playing. Because Batman basically has, like, the tier 1 pacifist hindrance from, like, Deadlands.
Oh,
where
you
can defend yourself, you can fight, but you can't actually kill anybody.
Yeah.
Like, he basically has that. I mean, it is against his code to kill people. So, you know, you can fight, you can win, but, you know, the second you have a player that takes over that role and decides that they're going to just, you know, start, like, sticking batarangs in people's eye sockets and stuff like that. You're like,
the horror
hold
movie
on.
version of Batman where where he's the monster.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's, you know, so you have to have a group that's buying it. They can say, all right, if I give you the ability to play as Batman, can you... Do you know who Batman is?
Right.
Do you understand what Batman's about? And are you confident that you are capable of role-playing that?
It's kind of not dissimilar to your D&D 5e character's personality traits and flaws and bonds and things like that. You have to just make sure that you really keep an eye on them as role-playing cues so that you don't go, I guess, out of character. Here's my next question to you is, as someone who does not like licensed RPGs, what is your exception? What is a setting that is a licensed setting that if I said, okay, we're going to play this, you might be able to find some excitement about it?
I think that...
Your number one favorite setting that you think would work best for you as a player, or a game master, you know, whichever one you'd be most willing to run or play as a licensed setting.
I mean, I think we already talked about it. Cowboy Bebop one is...
Cowboy Bebop?
But it's not just
what
because
about
it's...
Blade Runner? Blade
Well,
Runner's coming out.
I was going to say...
Yeah, what's your favorite, you think?
I honestly think that, like, I think Cowboy Bebop would be a really fun setting to play.
Yeah.
But the thing is, for me, like, any of those kind of, like, street level grittier licensed settings, I'm gonna be a little warmer to, because, like I said, with those settings, like the entire Blade Runner universe, there's enough of it there that you could carve out your own little piece and not ever interrupt any of the major plot points of the series.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? I don't feel the same way about Lord of the Rings. Like, I don't think that there's, at least if you're trying to play in the specific eras of either The Hobbit, between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, or Lord of the Rings, I just don't think there's a lot of, I don't think there's a lot of oxygen left in there. You know what I mean? Like, there's just, all of the cool stuff that has happened in the movies and the books is eating up all that bandwidth, and it's really hard to find a place for your players to feel like they are equivalently epic characters to the ones that they want to be like going into that setting.
What about 40K? There are 40K RPGs, which are technically, that is a licensed RPG.
That is true.
From an existing IP that is not previously a...
But wasn't 40K a game before it was an IP for other stuff?
I mean, it was the war game.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's what I mean. Which,
I guess what I'm asking is, do you count this because it's technically a licensed RPG, right? If you're playing what is it? There's a bunch of different 40K and Age of Sigmar and fantasy, like Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is based on Warhammer Fantasy. But you've got, I think, Dark Heresy is the name of the one where you play Inquisition members or people that attach to it. There is the current one, which is Wrath and Glory. It's 40K Wrath and Glory, currently run by something Cubicle 7. That's it. They have adopted Wrath and Glory. So my question to you is, do you count that as licensed, and would that compete? Because I know you are a big 40K lore fan. You've never played the tabletop, but you love the lore and the video games.
I do not consider... I mean, with the amount of books they have, I can understand why you would consider it a licensed IP. Because
exactly. There's a lot of narrative that is considered canon.
Existing in it. But to me, it just feels different because it was a game before it was a series of books, before the lore became its own media system.
And only recently are we having Warhammer Plus, and I think wasn't there a terrible movie at one point?
There was a 3D movie that they did that was pretty PlayStation 2. Like in terms of
its graphics.
Yeah, I mean it was probably a little bit better than that, but the models were very stiff. They felt really stiff.
They not only they looked robotic, even though they're humans in
robo suits. But I mean, even when they had
kind of got that rigid animate, not quite as bad as the original Donkey Kong Country TV show, but
not quite that. But I mean, even when they had their helmets off, like the facial expressions and all that, you were like,
that's fair. So I guess maybe where we draw the line is if it was a game first, it doesn't count.
I think if it
at least for you,
I think if it was a game first, I'm already a little bit warmer to it.
Okay.
But with that said, even with the IP stuff aside, I do think that there are a lot of epic tales to be told in the 40K universe because it's so big.
Right.
That there's still an option there to carve out something for you. If you had a squad.
And I mean, in the current canon now, after 9th edition, they've literally split the known galaxy in half, right? Mm-hmm. So, do you have any question? Well, I guess I could answer this question. At least currently, I think it would be Dune.
Okay.
Partially because we as a group, our specific group, there has not been much in the way of a political intrigue game. There has been peppered political intrigue throughout the fantasy game, but it's never been the core thing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in Dune, that's gonna be the game. It's gonna be politics and backstabbing, a lot of good role playing. I'd be really excited to run it. I think I'd be even more excited to play it. And then I think if I had to pick maybe a second option, honestly, Star Wars. Okay. I grew up. Those were my favorite movies as a child. I think just by the mere exposure effect, I'd really like to run or play a Star Wars game someday.
Okay.
If you were going to, well, how about this? Do you have any additional advice for people that might be willing to run or wanting to run a licensed RPG? Any sort of tidbits to help people make it their own? Or, for starters, I'll say one. You can usually take certain existing systems and without too many rules changes. Like Cowboy Bebop is pretty low sci-fi space adventure. There are plenty. You could probably play Traveler and use that system instead.
I'm sure Traveler would work fine for that. It seems like it would.
You could use Traveler. Maybe even, I haven't looked at the rules for there's an Expanse RPG. That's a licensed thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's got decent rules for it.
I would bet that's got some really good space travel rules.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the show did a really good job of covering that, so...
That'd be something to look into, too.
Yeah.
Is if maybe you want to run a setting, but you don't like the licensed RPG, take a look at other settings.
Yeah, there are a lot of other systems out there. Either the generic ones that are kind of built to do a little bit of everything, or similar systems. I mean, there's still that rumor going around that Traveler was basically what inspired Firefly.
Yes, the quote unquote rumor.
Yeah.
For me, it's reality.
I mean,
it's there's enough.
I have let's put it this way: I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes.
Like if I were to find confirmation that little rumor is true, I would be like, yeah, no, that makes some sense.
It's like the first episode. Wash says, "Hang on, travelers," before he hits the thrust
Yep.
of the ship of Serenity. Not the Serenity. It's just Serenity. Just Serenity. I think. And don't get me wrong, the Cowboy Bebop that we keep coming back to does seem like it has good rules, at least on paper, just from what I've read of its description. But I guess that's the thing. If you want to run a licensed RPG, make sure you have expectations. It's a lot of the same stuff, isn't it? Always. Yeah. A lot of the same advice that you would apply to your normal game comes to licensed RPGs.
Well, and I was going to say, my answer to the question is session 0. Sit down with your players and go over your expectations. Because if you're going into, say, the Lord of the Rings RPG, and your players are expecting, like, a very epic tale, just be prepared to rewrite the story. Just be prepared to change the canon as necessary to do that. And if you don't want to have to do that, then either pick a setting or make sure that your players are aware, hey, we're going to do kind of a street level thing here. It's going to be very low impact on the grand scheme of things. Doesn't mean it's not going to be fun, but you're not throwing the ring into Mordor. Like, do not go into this expecting that you are throwing the ring into Mordor. That's Frodo's job, not yours.
I would say that you can actually have, as someone who has read the game front to back, I think in the One Ring, 2nd edition, never read the first one, that you could have a epic campaign. It's just the only thing you're not allowed to do is take the ring to Mordor. You might even have an entire adventure around one of the other rings of power. There's tons of other rings of power,
true.
right?
You could do that.
There's other things in the Lord of the Rings lore that you could have an epic scale adventure in. It's just not going to be the most important epic adventure that happens.
That's true. That's very true.
Heck, I in my brain just now, I was like, oh, what about a story where, like, Rivendell is threatened, and you have to prevent a large-scale attack against Rivendell? Sure, it's not canon, but I think it sounds like fun. I think we got time for a couple more questions here. What would you do, I guess what would you pick if I approached you? Say you've got a publishing company, and you've already got one or two games under your belt, and I approach you with my existing license, and I want you to design the rules for my setting. Which setting would you hope to design a game for?
Man, that's a heavy question.
Yeah, if I was going to be like, hey, you need to make my game, which game would you be most excited to try and design rules to make the rules fit the flavor of that setting?
Okay, in order for me to answer this, I have to assume that I can get the IP rights for things that have already been done.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure almost every popular RP or IP has already been done in some role-playing capacity.
Oh, most of them have.
Vast majority of them.
But most of them have multiple editions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there have been multiple. Both just take Shadowrun has changed hands between different game studios. There have been different studios that have done different Star Wars RPGs. Yeah, it was West End Games back in the 70s or 80s or whatever, and now it's Fantasy Flight that is the current one. Yeah. So yes, it can even be an existing one that's been done before. Which setting would you be, or perhaps not necessarily? It could be the one you're most excited about, or one you feel most capable of replicating.
Ooh. I know for a fact that it would be something anime.
Okay.
I don't know for sure what, but I would want to do some kind of like really over the top, like characters with signature moves, kind of
like a shonen battle anime,
like something, something like that. I don't know that it wouldn't because even in my head I'm thinking about a Gundam game would be cool.
Oh yeah. I will never be displeased at the release of a different mecha RPG.
Yeah,
give me all the options.
I just finished watching Trigun again.
Oh yeah,
and I really do like that like dusty kind of Old West planet vibe that has. That combines a lot of things that I really like. There's definitely the sci-fi element. There's definitely like the Western element to it.
Take your own crack at doing from the ground up quick shooting rules, or quick draw rules and such things.
Yeah, I mean it would be hard for me to pick just one. But I would definitely want something with a more over the top kind of anime style, where like you deliberately, like if you were doing shooting rules, that you deliberately had abilities that would allow characters to ricochet bullets in unrealistic
Very
proportions.
cinematic combat.
Yeah,
okay.
or like certain abilities where a dude with a sword can charge a guy with a gun, cutting the bullets in half as he goes. Stuff that just defies reality in every conceivable way, but it's fun. It gives you a really fun feeling when you do it.
Rule of cool is the law in a game like that.
Like something like that would be like anything under that vein. I could probably get away with doing something with, and I really enjoy it.
All right. Yeah, good answer. I think that'll about wrap it up, though, for licensed RPGs. And even though that you hate them, or dislike them, I should say, that you would still be willing to make a cool, over-the-top shonen battle anime.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I could find something I'd enjoy.
Oh, yeah. That said, I hope that you have enjoyed your time here at the Game Master Speakeasy. I've been Cody, and this has been Lance, who's currently he's been currently taking a swig of his New Glarus coffee stout.
You caught me drinking.
If you have enjoyed your time here, please check us out on social media and come back next episode. And if you've missed the first 16, go watch or listen to some of those. And I would like to ask anyone currently listening who has any sort of questions, comments, concerns, recommendations to hit us up at gmspeakeasyofficial@gmail.com. Other than that, the only thing I ask is that you get home safe.
Want to hear more from the Record Button? You can find us wherever you find podcasts, like Transistor, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. To stay up to date on our releases, find us on Facebook at the Record Button Production Group and on Twitter at TRBPRODGRP. Or stop by our website at recordbuttongroup.com, where we have links to our merch and other shows such as Wasteland Active Radio and Why Did I Write This? Thank you for listening.